This is a preview of a subscriber-exclusive episode on Vladimir Nabokov's controversial masterpiece, Lolita. For access to the whole thing, plus early access to all Method of Madness episodes, sign up through Patreon or Substack. The link is at madmethodpod.com/support. The experiment is fairly basic. All you do is, as soon as you wake up, you write down your dreams in as much detail as you possibly could. And then at fairly regular intervals, you just review what you've written down to see if there are any correspondences with events that have happened. And it's important to record the dreams, not only because this improves your memory of them, but it's very possible that if you don't write them down and the dreams kind of remain this somewhat formless thing, that once you run into some kind of event in your daily life, you'll sort of retroactively apply it to that dream and make more of the connection than you otherwise might. If you write them down as soon as you wake up and you use that as your reference, it'll be much easier to see if the correspondences are clear. Now, because Dunn had essentially proved to himself that he and other people were capable of precognitive dreams, he developed a fairly, at the time anyway, radical theory of time. And I'm going to read the definition of this as it was written in another book. I've read a brief an experiment in time, an experiment with time. Totally worth reading as like an oddity. This like 1930s psychological weirdo psychic time theory. It's interesting read. Much of it is fairly dense, to be honest, especially when he gets into the theory of time. So to make things a little bit easier to understand, I'm going to read the definition of Dunn's theory of time from another book. This is a book entitled Insomniac Dreams, which is a collection of Nabokov's dream experiments plus additional context and commentary, all pulled together by the writer Gennady Barabtarlo, and I apologize, I'm probably mispronouncing that. Anyway, here's Dunn's ideas about time. Quote, "Time should be perceived as a series of new dimensions or layers ever unfolding before the mind of an observer into a receding mental vista. Time that times the passage of time, measures it to infinity. The system resembles the Chinese box's principle. Every time is contained in a larger time that times its progress. The old notion of time serving as a fourth dimension of the universe, which Einstein and other relativists developed into a theory of pliable space-time, receives here what Dunn calls a sensory center of observation, and the number of dimensions multiplies aoristically, a direction that physical and mathematical thought took up for study much later. His dream theory is situated somewhere between two extreme contemporary positions. It dismisses Freud's proposition with a shrug rather than the scorn that Nabokov held for it, that dreams are a reflection of one's base self, stirring up unconscious motions and images. Yet it does not reach into the spiritual realm of Florensky's views that dreams are the zone of contact of the two worlds. Now, at some point, Nabokov read the work of J.W. Dunn, An Experiment with Time. The book was written in 1934. It's not clear exactly when he would have read it, but it was widely read by others, including James Joyce, a bunch of thinkers and writers that you would know. And we have to compare, reading this book to the notion that Nabokov expresses in Speak Memory, quote, "I do not believe in time." So for all that academic description we've got in the Prelude article about how Nabokov was working with time, there was some actual in his own life stuff going on with this as well. In 1964, he decided to engage in a dream/time experiment of his own. He'd been plagued by intense insomnia for much of his life, and I think at one point he was taking like tranquilizers to go to bed every night. And I think it's fair to say that there's a predilection among people with insomnia to, in some ways at least, become preoccupied with sleep and dreams. Here's a quote from Nabokov about this. Quote, "All my life, I had been a poor go-to-sleeper. All my life, I went to sleep with the greatest of difficulties and with disgust. A fellow train passenger who puts aside a newspaper and without any trouble is snoring the next moment is as incomprehensible to me as are people who say run for office or enter a Masonic lodge or join any organization in order to dissolve in them energetically. I know that sleep is good for us, yet I can't get accustomed to this betrayal of one's reasoning, to that nightly and rather grotesque breaking up with one's consciousness. In later years, it felt somewhat like the feeling before surgery with full anesthesia, but in my childhood, the forthcoming sleep appeared as a masked executioner. Now, Nabokov had had a number of weird experiences, some people might say coincidences, related to perception, time, memory, dreams, all of this. The most profound of these began in 1916 when he was just 17 years old. His uncle Basil had left him a significant fortune which was promptly wiped out in the Russian Revolution, and not long after, Nabokov had a dream.